If you're a mid-level to C-suite leader who wants to own your growth and figure out your next small, brave move to achieve your leadership goals, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Small Brave Moves podcast, a weekly deep dive on how to be braver in leadership and in life for exceptional results. I'm your host, Nicole Bianchi, best-selling author, certified master executive coach, NSA certified speaking professional, chief bravery officer, and tough talk expert. If you're ready to become a better, braver, and more authentic leader, let's dive in. Welcome to the Small Brave Moves podcast. Today's guest brings a powerhouse mix of leadership, learning, and a bit of baseball grit. I'm thrilled to be joined by Damon Lembi, CEO of Learnit, three-time best-selling author, and host of the Learnit All podcast. Damon has helped over 2 million people grow through Learnit's live learning platform, and his leadership style is rooted in one big belief: companies that outlearn, outlast. In today's episode, we're diving into what it really takes to build a culture of learning and bravery, from tough conversations to bold talent decisions, and how Damon's own small brave moves shaped his journey from athlete to executive. Damon, welcome to the podcast. I couldn't be more excited to have Damon Lembi here by my side. We are going to talk small, brave moves, brave conversations. I love Damon. First, I'm curious, what are you seeing with the emerging leaders or people in that 0 to 5 year span? What's the biggest challenge that they face in making their own small, brave moves?
Middle managers have it very difficult. They're getting it from above and beyond, from above and down, and then from their direct reports. They're completely stressed out. So at the end of the day, they're just treading water. So having to think about making brave small moves is probably very difficult for people in that situation.
Yeah, which is even more important to help work with them on the mindsets, behaviors, and the habits so that they can see it more accessible. Now I'm curious about what you're seeing in brave conversations, and I have something to add to this as well, but what do you see in brave conversations at this particular level too?
I think they're unavoidable these days, right? Because there's a lot of chaos out in the world and a lot of uncertainty. And especially as a leader, people are, they're not producing or they're worried about what's going on with AI and how that's going to affect their role. And now more than ever, you need to get out of your comfort zone and have those brave conversations.
Yeah. I'm seeing it too. And I'm seeing the resistance, like the avoidance of it. Or if they are jumping into it, they are doing it very off the cuff, not really having thought through it. They're talking in circles, so they don't have the clarity of the message that they want to deliver, which I know it takes small, brave moves to have the brave conversations as well. So let's talk about you. I appreciate you sharing a little bit about the audience that you're serving. Let's talk about you. Talk to me about a pivotal small, brave move that comes up for you when you think about your experience and expertise.
Well, one thing I want to highlight is what you just said. If you're having these conversations off the cuff or you're just rambling on, you lose trust with your team. And that's why it's so important to be intentional when you have these brave conversations. It's super important. As for me, one small brave move that comes to mind, which was a game changer, goes all the way back to 2009. And this is during another challenging time during the Great Recession, where we had to make layoffs. We had to let go 25% of our staff. And it came down to, on the sales team, we had 2 sales assistants. One who's there at Learnit for 3 years, and this young woman who's been there for less than 6 months. And the gentleman who's been there for 3 years was a really nice guy. He could always tell you what was going on in ESPN or the sports scores, and a lot of fun and to hang out with, and did a decent, B- job. But the woman she was a learn-it-all. She was always working hard, willing to learn, try things, get out of her comfort zone. And when I'd leave the office at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, she was still there as a sales assistant and working. So I sat down with my executive team and my sales team who was affected, and I said, hey, we'll just make up the names, Bob and the one, Courtney, on my team. I said, Bob's a nice guy, but at the end of the day, between Bob and Courtney, I'm going to have to let Bob go. Immediately got pushed back, right? Because he was so comfortable and used to the decisions and everything and working with the team. But I made that brave decision and I went with Courtney. And here we are, fast forward 16 years, and Courtney's the COO of our organization. So it was a brave move going against the grain of what people wanted and, going with the known versus the unknown, really. But it's one of the decisions that I'm most proud of throughout my career.
Yeah, I love that. And you saw the talent, right? You saw the talent, you knew the unproven talent, right? The untapped talent. And then to be able to invest in that. I love that. Think about in that small, brave move that you made, what was a mindset that you really held close that helped you navigate that and lean into that small, brave move?
Well, first was it's almost life and death at
Yeah.
this point for your organization, right? I mean, you don't have any wiggle room really. And the small brave move in it was really breaking the ice and having that conversation with the team up front, to say, hey, we're going to have to get out of our comfort zone here, and you're going to have to trust that this decision that we're going to go with is the right one. Now, of course, I gave them the opportunity to share their insights and their thoughts about why we should keep Bob instead of Courtney and what the impact could be. But, another real brave move is just kind of holding your tongue and not getting into a big argument
Yeah.
about it, and just being like, okay, I appreciate what you have to say, but now I'm asking you to get behind this decision and make the best of it. We need to do it as an organization.
Which is great example. We were just talking about this in a leadership session I was in about consensus versus alignment. And it's like, listen, when we have to make decisions like this, we're not looking for consensus. We're looking for input and then alignment, right? So that we can move forward in the most powerful way, knowing where we need to take the team. And so many times people think, well, consensus, if you're asking for my opinion, then I get to have a say in that matter. And you don't always. You get to have input, but that doesn't mean that we're going to choose your decision to move forward.
And what I think is important when it comes to decision making is setting that up
Yes.
front. This is especially around an important decision. Here's how the decision's going to be made and who's going to be making it. Now we're going to give you the opportunity to share your input.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to ask is afterwards, whatever direction we go, that we leave this room all on the same page as an aligned front.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So think about bravery and think about culture and in the work that you do, because, as you're investing in these leaders, you're helping them be braver, right? In the leadership moves that they're making, the work that you're doing at Learnit. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you build a culture of stronger bravery for leaders and teams so that they can deliver the business results that they're looking for?
Well, I like the word bravery in the sense because what we're doing when we're helping people with learning is hard, Nicole. It's hard.
Yes.
Behavior change is difficult. And a lot of times learning fails because it's going to require people to do things differently and to take chances and try. And one of my favorite terms is learning without doing is treason. So think about it. You sit in a class and we talk about here's how we're going to have difficult conversations differently, or change management, or whatever it is you're talking about. And if you just sit through your workshop and you don't apply anything, that's not really being brave. And so it's important that for the work that we do, both internally as an organization and for our customers, it's like take it from just the learning to actually doing. So there's learning and there's doing. And that's the brave part. And at the end of the day, when you do try something, because the only way you get better at anything is through confidence.
Right.
And confidence is built through reps, taking action.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer that if you try something, regardless of how it goes, give yourself a little self-validation, a little pat on the back for trying something. And I think that goes a long way instead of always looking for third-party validation from other people.
I love that. I talk about in the 5 Tough Talks, how to lead brave conversations. When we build the frequency, we build the confidence. And when we build the frequency and the confidence, we deliver much stronger results, right? Through the conversations we're having. So I couldn't agree more. And I think about some of the things. So what do you think gets in the way of leaders being braver in the conversations they need to have? Like, do you think the biggest challenges that you're seeing?
Well, when you were on my show, the Learn It All podcast, we discussed this, and I could tell you firsthand from me and for speaking to other leaders, a lot of times it's breaking the ice, and it's the conversation starter, which I know you have a bunch of different ways to do it, but I find that that's really one of the biggest challenge. And I think the other thing that gets in the way is that people want to have wishful thinking that's going to take care of it itself. Well, newsflash, it's not. It's only going to
Yes,
get worse,
yes.
right? It's only going to get worse. And, my interpretation of this is that as a leader, if you want to be a great leader, a people leader, then you need to care about your
Right.
people, and you're doing them a disservice, not getting out of your comfort zone and finding the time and space to have those challenging conversations.
Yeah. Time and space is so important. So the how do you get ready for it? How do you actually do it? And then what do you do at the end of it? It's the other challenge that I'm seeing is not just the not giving yourself the space to prepare for it, but I'm seeing like people leaders really struggle with the messy middle. Like, what do I do, in the midst of it? Like, how do I trust silence? So it's like we give them the opening and then they don't spend enough time on and so I always say, script it out, just script what you want, what's most important for them to know, the outcome that you're wanting to have happen, and always, always end with accountability and action so that the conversation moves forward in some way, that it doesn't just become one of the things I hear a lot from leaders, especially right now, which is interesting, is, well, I've had the conversation and I'm not seeing any change or any difference. And then when I go back to unpack it, usually there's a missing component, but it's like, we want to have a conversation that drives change and that makes impact and that makes a difference, right?
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point, because if you get stuck in the messy middle because you're not preparing, because I've been there before. And what happens? You kind of start rambling on, you start regurgitating what you're saying, and then you're trying to figure out, how do I even end this conversation? And you sometimes, if you're nervous, maybe even commit to things that you don't want to commit
Yes.
to. And then you walk away and you say to yourself, did I even get my message across? And what you're saying right there is so
Yeah.
true. I mean, whether it's role playing, whether it's practicing, whether it's just even visualizing having this conversation successfully, always make sure that you leave it with clear action items, and in a way that the individual you're with, you're on the same page. So instead of saying, does this make sense, or do you get it? I like saying, how did this land with
Mm,
you? You know, what are you thinking about what we had to
yeah.
say, right? So that to the best possible degree that you're both on the same
Yeah.
page.
That's a great way to not just get alignment, but to check in to see how the conversation went, which I love. So I'm going to pivot just a little bit because I am dying to hear about one of these Hall of Fame coaches. And one, I'm sure we could do a story for each, but talk to me about, just something that landed for you that helped shape and mold your leadership style, one of these coaches and one of the moves that they made with you.
Well, so I have two quick stories about a gentleman by the name of Andy Lopez, he won the College World Series twice, played three times. That was my first coach out of high school. I went to Pepperdine University. And the reason why I went to Pepperdine instead of taking a minor league contract was that Pepperdine was a small school, Nicole, 2,500 people, and he had a moonshot goal. And that moonshot goal was, we're going to win the College World Series. And a lot of people thought, how's that going to happen going up against these major schools? But he set his sights on it. We got intentional. We worked as a team, and they won the College World Series. Well, side note, I left the year before they won,
Right.
right? But just because I dealt with imposter syndrome and
Yeah.
everything. But so that was one thing that I learned from him, was that you could set moonshot goals and go for it. So that was a big lesson. We could talk about that more. But really, when it comes to being brave, and what I learned from Coach Lopez is, one day, a couple months into the preseason, I was just turned 18 years old, really struggled with imposter
Yeah.
syndrome. Went from being a high school
Yeah.
All-American to everybody was as good as I
Yeah.
was. He sat me down in the our first performance review, and he sat there and he said, Damon, when I recruited you, it was because I believed you had the talent to be an all-star and a major force for our team. But he said, now, son, after 3 months, I don't think you have the ability to play Division I baseball. And he crossed his arms, stared at me right in the face, and looked at me. And so, Nicole, my first reaction was, I wanted to either cry or just get out of there, call my mommy, and go home.
It's
And before I had an opportunity to respond, he leaned forward, pointed at me, and he said, that's not what I think about you. That's not what the coaching staff thinks about you. That's what's in your head. That's what's going on in your mind. And there's only so much we can do for you until you're able to get rid of this limiting beliefs or this imposter syndrome. you're never going to live up to your own potential. So it was kind of a odd way to go about it, but it's something that always stuck with me. And since that time, things didn't work out there. I got hurt and moved on, but I never forgot that conversation about how it's important to be able to believe in yourself and figuring out how to work through your imposter
There's
syndrome.
so much more inside of us than we realize. And I don't know, I know for a fact the imposter syndrome doesn't go away. It rears its ugly head throughout our journey, right? And how we show up for it and what we do with it. In fact, so two things I want to talk about. Well, I actually have three. One, did you know that the College World Series is held in Omaha, Nebraska?
Well, of course, I was there.
This
I
is
love
really the
Omaha.
question. Did you know that I spend half
Oh,
my time in Omaha, Nebraska? And there's a good
yeah.
chance I was probably at this College World Series game. So,
And did you know that I in my glory days, like my wife likes to say, I hit a home run in the 1994 College World Series for Arizona State.
oh, that's amazing.
I don't know, maybe you're there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love, love, love this. I don't know that I knew this connection. Now I do. Number two is, did you know that high performers exponentially deal with imposter syndrome more than the average person? So that's something to know. And our high performing leaders that are listening in on this know that you're in good company here. And then
And you know why they
why?
do? I truly believe that high performers deal with fear and imposter syndrome more often because, Nicole, they care more. They care. And when something is really important to you, you're going to have that fear. You're going to have that imposter
Yeah.
syndrome. And also sometimes you're humble and you want to work through it. So maybe I'm wrong. I'm curious to see what you think, but my understanding is that high performers have more imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs because they care more.
Yeah.
They care more.
Yeah, absolutely. They care more. And I think go back to your moonshot, move. Those the high performers are going after something so much bigger, and we let those things, sometimes the stories we tell ourselves, the limiting beliefs, the imposter syndrome, can get in the way of it if we're not able to address it. The mental side of the sport is what I'm hearing you talk about, is the same thing we deal with in leadership. It's the mental side of leadership, right? It's great when things are going really well, but when we get out of sync or out of alignment with our team or the business, that can show up really strongly. And there's an important part in my third book that I've spent writing this last year around conquer yourself and what happens when we're dealing with that fear, that imposter syndrome, and what happens when we get in this resistance cycle of what's happening and we're not self-aware of what's showing up for us. And then what are we actively doing about it? Because I don't know that it ever goes away. The imposter syndrome, right? What are your thoughts?
Newsflash, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And I think the more senior you get in organizations, both from the clients we work with, to myself, but even friends I have who are, running VCs or private equity firms or whatever it is they're doing, they all still deal with the imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Do I even belong
Yeah.
here? And just like you talked about in conquering yourself, I think in resistance, it all comes down to putting in the reps and doing the work. And the more that you do that and give yourself the self-validation, I think those are ways to help. I don't want to say cope with it. It's not the right way, but that's the way to push through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I do some intentional mindset work every morning around this piece so that when I go to make my small brave move or I do something new on stage or, it just gives me permission to experiment, to recognize not everything's going to be perfect, but am I making progress today that I wasn't yesterday in these areas? Absolutely. And I'm growing so much stronger because I'm willing to do it. So I love that. Okay, so talk to us about if you were to give one piece of advice around making a small, brave move for our listeners out there, what would that piece of advice be?
My piece of advice would be think about what's on your mind right now that you're avoiding. Whether it's a difficult conversation, whether it's a risky decision that needs to be made, get out of your comfort zone and do it and go for it. I mean, that more than anything is stop thinking about it and take
Yeah,
action.
I love that. And I'll tell you, I love that that's your piece of advice because on my morning mindset, my last piece is what's the small brave move you're going to make today? And that's exactly what I do is I do the countdown and then I have 10 minutes to put that into forward motion. Otherwise, I'll sit and I'll think about it. I'll overanalyze. I'll make it too complex. And it's like, it's just that simple. And the other thing about that is not all small, brave moves a lot of them go uncelebrated, unrecognized, and unnoticed initially. But know that as they build upon each other, one small, brave move will lead to another. And that's been a daily practice for me, and it's made a big difference. So talk to us about Learnit. If we wanted to connect, learn more, what's the best way for us to engage with you? If we have a leadership team we want to put through this, new emerging leaders, what's the best way to do it? As I get on my super cool hat here, check it out.
I like that hat. And look what book I got, the Small Brave Moves book. And I love your Learn It hat.
Yeah,
Thank you. And you got the Learn It All Leader book. I mean, this is just a love fest.
It is.
So learnit.com is our website. And if you go to the show notes or you check out, go to learnit.com/free. And we're giving right now 45 days of free live training for you and up to 20 team members. So you can take a class in difficult conversations or how AI essentials or how to give and receive feedback. So that's one of the best ways to get going right now, especially if you're on a tight budget and you want to get some people through some live learning opportunities. Go to learnit.com/free.
I love the ability to be able to try it on. And I know that there's a lot of organizations who probably have budgets that can pay for it and some who are loving to try it. So I would love to share this with my nonprofit groups too, that because they're always looking for an opportunity. How do I grow my leadership team initially and try something on without making the investment? So I love that opportunity. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I love representing the hat. That makes me feel good. So
I love it. I love it. Well, next time I see you, it'll be fully worn in. So
cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Damon, and thanks for dropping the pearls of wisdom on not just the small, brave moves you've made, but those that you've learned from other leaders in your path and on your leadership journey as well. And listeners, take a minute to go out to Learnit and see what you can to pull for leadership development. So thank you, Damon, for being a part of the Small Brave Moves podcast. I so deeply appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I had a great time on your show, and it's been an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Small Brave Moves podcast. If you're wanting to take this work even deeper, I'm here to help. From engaging in inspirational keynote speeches to transformational coaching and workshops for leaders and teams, page-turning books, online courses, and enlightening leadership development retreats. There are so many ways that we can work together to take your leadership to the next level. For more information, check out the show notes, and let's do this together. One small brave move at a time. See you next week.